Hello, Alabama fans. Welcome to the BamaOnLine Big Show. I'm Tim Watts, the BOL publisher. With me is Charlie Potter, our team writer, our team expert, along with Blake Byler, the no longer single Blake Byler, who's now jumped in. When Blake got engaged, and congratulations, I sent him the scene from Wedding Crasher, where the
You
guy's like,
did.
way to think it through, Blake. Way to think it. Yeah, that was me. I was Vince Vaughn. Just shut up. You don't even need to do this, Blake. Think it through. But congratulations to Blake. Again, the
Thank you.
BOL Big Show is the one show a week we do where we have all the talent from the Bama Online staff. Charlie does a great job along with Blake. They had a long road this year, many up and downs. Following us up will be the recruiting editor, Andrew Bone and Jimmy Stein, who dips his toes in recruiting and team stuff, along with Joseph Hastings to close out the show. Andrew Bone, and we'll talk some recruiting with signing day tomorrow. Boys, 12 games. We made it. Went just like we thought, right?
I don't know about that. This has been it's funny because it feels like the season's flown by, but it also feels like this has been the longest season of all time at the same time. I think when we were on that Zoom call on January 10th when Nick Saban retired, that feels like that was 2.5 years ago. But then Western Kentucky also kind of feels like that was just a couple of weeks ago. It's been a weird year, but it's been busy. You mentioned it. It's been a long season. It's been a grind, but it's kind of crazy. We're sitting here now, no game on Saturday, and waiting to see what happens for Alabama in the postseason. It's been quite the journey.
Blake, what are your thoughts? It's your first full season with BOL. You came in at the last moment, right before the kickoff, basically. And I mean, you haven't really had a chance to catch your breath. Do a great job for us. Tell us your thoughts on the seasons, because to me, Charlie's right. I mean, it felt like every week was its own season, but then here we are past Thanksgiving and heading to Christmas, and the heated debate about the college football playoffs coming tonight.
I mean, it really just felt like a roller coaster from the start because you had kind of the expected outcome against Western Kentucky, and then you kind of get thrown into a week two when they're in a tight game with South Florida, going into the fourth quarter of that game, and then the season just kind of got crazier from there. I think if you asked Alabama fans before the season, if you said they'd be around 10-2, 9-3, some of them might have been like, yeah, okay, like I expect that with the new coach and the transition into a new regime and everything. But I think the interesting thing was who they beat and who they lost to. I think that was kind of the unexpected part, more so than the record, because you have the big win over Georgia, you have the blowout win at LSU in Death Valley, but then at the same time you have losses at Vanderbilt. You have a loss to what was a 5-5 Oklahoma team. And so you have these kind of inexplicable losses to go with these big wins that kind of just make a really confusing season where you don't really know entirely what to make of it, like what exactly this team was. But here we are at the end of the season, and there's a real chance that they get into the college football playoff, depending on what the committee thinks of their resume and what else happens in conference championship games and things like that. So a very interesting season for sure, and one that I don't think people will be forgetting anytime soon.
Yeah, to me, it's always almost like Groundhog's Day every season and every recruiting class, because all the trauma caused last year is forgotten. And they walk into this season, this recruiting class, thinking everything went hunky dory. And you'll see stuff like, name the last time we didn't look prepared under Saban. I was like, well, the Auburn game, didn't feel really prepared on 4th and 31. I wasn't thinking, hey, at least we really prepared for this game. So we've had that. And then the recruiting drama with, we didn't have any drama last year. I'm like, Ryan Williams, where are you guys at? Y'all are on the board. I see y'all every year. So Charlie, you make it through this year. Expectations, just, at the end, the final piece, looking at the final puzzle, expectations for what we expected after Nick Saban's in his first year with the new coaching staff. How did that match up to what maybe you were thinking?
Yeah, it's kind of tough because you really didn't know what to expect. You had some holdover from the Nick Saban era with, the coaching staff, some pieces in the building, some key players, but there was a lot of new. You just didn't know what to expect. And I think for the most part, it went about the way you would think it would. But Blake's right. I mean, there was some inexplicable things that happened because you can't really wrap your head around with the season on the line, the SEC championship game, the college football playoff, to go and just lay an egg at Oklahoma. You don't see that one coming. Vanderbilt, we know Vanderbilt actually proved to be better than what a lot of people expected to be. Still going on the road in a place that holds less than 30,000 people and lose on the road is rough, because really the common theme there is Alabama's been really good at home. Alabama's been really good coming off a bye, which if they get in the playoff, that's for down the road, but that would be beneficial to have that preparation time. But Alabama's just been really spotty on the road. They played well against Wisconsin. It helped that Tyler Van Dyke went out of that game early. They played the game they did against LSU, but then the rest of the games were losses. So I guess maybe that's what we glean from this, is that going away from Tuscaloosa, you don't know what to expect. But really, everything else, I think you have to be pretty happy with. To be sitting here on December 3rd and still have a chance to somehow get in the playoff with 3 losses. I think if you'll fast forward to maybe, February or next summer or several years down the road, and you talk about Kalen DeBoer's first season, and you say, well, they beat Georgia at home. They won the Iron Bowl, and they got into the playoffs. People will be like, damn good year for a first-year head coach. So we'll see what happens, moving forward. But I think all in all, I thought 10-2 was reasonable. 9-3 wasn't going to surprise me. I think anything less than that, though, I maybe would have been shocked a little bit.
Blake, if this was Jalen Milroe, and we think there's a pretty good chance it could be his last game in Tuscaloosa, his legacy, his impression, obviously a guy often talked about, brilliant at times, not really brilliant at other times. What do you think his legacy will be at Alabama, or what will you remember about him at Alabama?
I think I'll remember him as one of the more polarizing players that Alabama has had really in the modern last 2 decades or so, because you really have had so many, kind of like this season, so many highs and lows that have come with Jalen Milroe's play, and those highs and lows have been really the exact same that goes with the wins and losses. Like his good games have produced really big wins for Alabama, and you look at some of his records against some of these big teams. 2-0 against Auburn, and he had the 4th and 31 memorable play. 2-0 against Georgia, when Georgia's kind of at some of their peak as far as their program's history. 2-0 against LSU, had 2 massive games against them running the ball. But then you look and you see the Vanderbilt game. You look at even last season as a starter, the Texas game and how poorly he played in that game. And then you have Oklahoma this year and the egg that Alabama laid in that. And so there were so many ups and downs, and you have a guy who, whenever he was playing at his best, was one of probably the best players in the country. And even early on in this season, when he had played well and coming off that Georgia game, you had people talking about him for the Heisman. He finished 6th place in Heisman Trophy voting a season ago based off of the way that he performed down the stretch. So he's a player that it had a lot of potential and played to it sometimes, but he didn't have that consistency over game in and game out, bringing it every single week, especially on the road. So I think it's a complicated legacy, because he is leaving at the very least an SEC champion in 2023. He's leaving as a top 6 Heisman Trophy finalist in 2023. He made the college football playoff and then was a 2-year starter, beat some really good teams, was part of the Georgia game, which was one of the most memorable home games that Alabama has had in the last 5, 6, 7 years. But then the lows were really low as well. So it's a complicated legacy for sure.
Yeah, I think history, some space will do him good, because you look at Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jalen took the ultimate criticism in Alabama, kind of the same type of player, but history, when you see him mention him now, there's not really that same. I mean, we're in the moment. So down the road, we'll remember 4th and 31. I don't give a damn. You're going to remember that the rest of your life. You're not always going to remember that Texas game like that. Charlie Potter, a couple more guys I think we need to shout out. When I told people, like, thank Jalen for staying, thank Malachi for staying, they're like, where were they going? They could have went anywhere. They could have portaled to anywhere in the friggin' country. Are you kidding me? But Malachi 5-0 against Auburn, that's crazy. Tyler Booker, a couple more guys. Charlie, hit on them before we move on away from this season. Your thoughts on those guys?
Yeah, I mean, those were kind of the glue guys that kept the program together when Nick Saban retired. You can throw Deontay Lawson in that mix, and it sucks that he didn't get to play in the Iron Bowl on Saturday, being an in-state guy. But Blake wrote about it after the game. We talked about it in the press box beforehand. Just the tone that Malachi set in that Iron Bowl was big. You can tell it means something to him, not just that game, but this season.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that brought the boom on a
Yeah,
lot
he
of
did.
plays. He had some fire on the sideline during the skirmish. He's a guy that it means something to him, not just playing against Auburn and staying undefeated, but playing for Alabama. And Malachi coming back was huge. Two-time team captain. If he came back for a third season, he'd be a three-time team captain. I think if he could come back for a sixth year, he would. But hell of a player. Gonna miss Malachi just from a what we do standpoint, because he's always good when he comes up. He has a smile on his face. He answers the questions. He never has a bum attitude, and that's even after a loss. He's just professional in that way. I know I've seen, and Auburn fans probably aren't happy with him, but there's not really a bad bone in that kid's body. He's a good dude through and through, and the same goes for Tyler Booker. I mean, I think both of those guys, and they might talk a little bit. I'm not saying they don't talk a little trash on the field by any stretch of the imagination. We saw what happened in that skirmish in the Iron Bowl. I think both of those players, Malachi Moore and Tyler Booker, talk with their pads too, and they're leaders. They're vocal, but they play through the whistle. They play their ass off, and I think that's contagious to the rest of the team. And you could see both of them after the game how emotional they were. They've just been really good leaders for Alabama. I think Tyler Booker had some emotional comments in the locker room afterwards, and that's not that much of a surprise. I don't think that's rare to the Iron Bowl, but I think he also realizes that his time in Alabama is coming to a close, and he's probably going to move on to the next level. And so, yeah, from a leadership standpoint, from a production on the field standpoint, really anything they touch in the program it's been positive. And they talk a lot. That's because they're brought up a lot. These guys aren't going and calling us or in the next round or anybody to say these quotes that might piss some people off sometimes. They're literally doing what's part of their weekly duty, which is maybe a few minutes out of the week. I think that's what I've seen a lot of things, maybe this season, last season, that, these guys need to shut up and play. These guys aren't calling these press conferences to get stuff off their chest. They're doing it because they're trusted within the building, and they're going to get brought up more often than not because they know what they say isn't going to be that bad. So that's me getting off on a little bit of a tangent and ranting a little bit. But no, I think both of those guys mean a ton to the program. I think they mean a ton to Nick Saban. I think they mean a ton to Kalen DeBoer.
Next year's schedule, I was looking at 2025, and I mean, it's kind of weird. You go to Tallahassee, you have Wisconsin coming back. I mean, two completely off the rails before you get into the SEC. Blake, looking forward to a schedule like that. Wisconsin, Florida State, and the regular SEC and a little bit easier road schedule, I should add as well.
I mean, it'll be fun for sure. I think there are some interesting road games in there, some places that you don't normally see Alabama go, Tallahassee being the main one, but you also have a road trip to Athens, which is probably going to be the center of college football that week, whenever that arrives, whenever it is. And then you also have, I think, a road trip to Missouri
You
and
do.
South Carolina. So a lot of interesting road games that could be challenging. We know that I don't know how next year's team is going to struggle on the road, or if they will, but that could be a little nerve wracking, seeing that you have 5 true road games on the schedule as opposed to less than that in years past. But you also have a really good home schedule. You've got possible revenge games against Vanderbilt and Oklahoma coming in on top of rivals in Tennessee and LSU. So that's going to be really fun. You've got Wisconsin coming in. It's a Big Ten opponent coming to Bryant-Denny Stadium. And then you close it out with a road trip to Auburn, which is Charlie's favorite place to cover a game. So that'll be a really great way to close the season.
All right, basketball is here. Saw quite the week last week. I mean, again, you look at Alabama's 2 losses. They're both top 10 teams now. Oregon was an easily winnable game. I think Purdue was just the odds were against them. They weren't going to get a lot of help with officiating, didn't play a great game. Oregon, absolutely not a beautiful game by any stretch of the imagination from the tip. Had that run where they got up 7, 9 points, whatever it was, and then quickly evaporated. But so far, doing okay on that stretch. Go to North Carolina tomorrow. Tough break with Charlie. But I think this team's still learning, figuring itself out. And I think Nate's giving them some rope to figure out how they should play this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, his favorite word this time of year is expose. He doesn't want them to play badly, but I think he wants the things that they're not great at to come to the light, to have coaching points and to be able to work on them and be better when SEC play starts. And so, Blake and I were talking about it on, I don't know which one of these road trips we've made, but one of them, just the Purdue games and the North Carolina game felt like the toughest games on the schedule because they're on the road. Oregon, that is a little bit of a surprise. I'll admit I didn't watch much of that game because I made Blake leave the press box early to cover it, and I finished up the Iron Bowl coverage. But unfortunately, I was able to get back and write the Latrell Wrightsell injury update, which sucks. But yeah, I mean, you would think with $1.5 million on the line that they would play a little better, but they still get a little bit of a good payout from that game out in Vegas. But yeah, the North Carolina game coming up, it's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back, playing on the road, their second true road game of the season, and how these guys kind of rally around not having Latrell Wrightsell out there, because you need good games from Mark Sears and LeBaron Philon and Aiden Holloway, and they can get that. Those guys have played really good at times this season, but I think as a collective unit, we've yet to see all three maybe have their best games. This will be a hell of a time to do it.
Yeah, I mean, going to North Carolina, I know, Blake, you're going. Excitement level to see that game. I mean, that's going to be a pretty interesting top 20 team, I think Carolina is. Obviously, but I mean, when you're playing at North Carolina, they're going to be with that crowd better than their ranking.
Yeah, I'm pumped about it. Just to be able to see, the home arena of a blue blood program like that is really exciting. I got to go to Rupp last year, which was also really cool. So to get to go to the Dean Smith Center is very exciting. But these fans are going to be very ready to go for this game, because this was the team that put them out of the NCAA tournament when they were a 1 seed last year. And when you go into the tournament with a 1 seed, you have Final Four hopes and expectations, and Alabama ruined that 2 rounds early for them. And then 2 seasons ago, Alabama beat them up in Portland for the Phil Knight Invitational in a 4 overtime game. So Alabama's got a 2-game win streak over North Carolina going right now, which isn't something you really expect to say in basketball. But their fans are going to be ready. Their team has been probably a little disappointing relative to expectations so far this year. They're ranked 20th. They've got 3 losses already. They kind of got worked in Maui by Auburn, and then lost I think it was their 5th, either the 3rd place or 5th place game to Michigan State. They left Maui 1-2. And then they lost a game to Kansas earlier this year. So they haven't performed to the level that a lot of people expected. I think they were a preseason top 10 team coming in. But still, that's another reason, them coming home with a big opponent coming in, they're probably going to have their best game ready for Alabama. And so going into a tough road environment, they're going to be ready to go. I think it's a winnable game. I don't think North Carolina is some elite world-beating type team. Like, I think this is a team that Alabama can beat, but it's going to take really good execution to be able to do that.
All right, guys, we're going to let you get out of here. Charlie Potter, grab you some breakfast. Blake, go pick out China patterns. Congratulations again. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you next week, and looking forward to the coverage. College football playoffs are going to have a lot of drama tonight. I don't know about y'all. I just ignore it all. I don't want to hear everybody on Twitter stating their case. I don't give a damn about their case. I'm going to be honest. Now I'm going to go on a tangent. But you guys go and handle it. We appreciate you as always. Look forward to seeing you on the roundtable this week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Going to wait till Andrew figures out he's on the air. Scoot back a little. I don't want to see your tonsils. Andrew's not paying attention. We had you on here for 2.5 minutes. What are you drinking on, Andrew Bone?
Bourbon. I sensed it.
What do they call it? Irish coffee? Is that what they have? Isn't that a thing?
That's what it is.
Yeah, I had one in New Orleans one night. It was a thumper. I had it at Mr. B's Bistro, and it was it was loaded with alcohol. I don't know if that's normal, but you guys know. Well, Jimmy Stein, welcome to the show. Andrew Bone, welcome to the show. We are now officially done with the regular season, which is kind of amazing. I know how much we love it. I mean, we're going through the recruiting cycle, which starts tomorrow. will last through Friday, and then we're going to have to, in the old days we had nothing to do, but now we got the portal starting the ninth. We got college football playoffs arguing consistently. Andrew, what do you think about your time this time of the year?
It's weird. You end the regular season and you kind of get ready for the for the conference championship games. You don't get ready for signing day. It's popped up out of nowhere. I'm happy that it's here. Happy that it's not the 20th this year. Happy that my wife's not trying to chop my head off with us covering signing day the couple days before Christmas. But man, it's crazy that the regular season's over. I mean, it feels like it just flew by, even though those 3 losses. But man, it really did fly by pretty quickly.
Yeah, to me, Jimmy, it wasn't more. To me, every week felt like its own little mini season, and that week drug on forever until the next game. But then it's gone. Blink of an eye, the season is gone.
Yeah, it was really doesn't seem long ago that I do the summer ranking of the roster and counting down till fall camp starts, and then fall camp, and then the season starts, and it's just gone in a blink. It's been fun and terrifying. And I always say seasons are like roller coasters, not merry-go-rounds, but that's never been more applicable to this season for Alabama with great highs. The win over Georgia, just unbelievably fun, great performance by Jalen Milroe. And then you drub LSU in Baton Rouge. That was great. And then you've got these low lows, and I'm talking about obviously the losses to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. I don't think the loss to Tennessee is bad because it's a rival, but I think anytime you lose to a playoff team on the road, that's not particularly a low point in your program's history. But losing to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma dampened what was otherwise a pretty good and fun season. We'll see how it all works out in the wash tonight.
Yeah, pretty excited to hear that. I know the debate, people have been asking me on the round table. I'm sure they have y'all, but I don't listen to anybody talk about it. They don't have any say so. I don't need them to break down everything and explain. I mean, I know I'm tired of hearing the hot team. This isn't the NCAA basketball tournament. What the hell are y'all talking about? You don't judge a movie for spurts in the movie. You judge the movie. It's a seasonal thing. Alabama has the head to head. How much attention have you paid to all this college football playoff talk, Andrew?
About as much as you have, just kind of wait and see what happens. I mean, everybody's got their own opinions. I mean, you go on social media, you go on the boards, you watch TV, you listen to radio. I mean, this team deserves to be in, that team deserves to be in, this Alabama shouldn't be in because of this, South Carolina shouldn't be in. Who cares? We'll find out tonight. And, I think that, we'll get to the weekend, see what needs to happen. But, man, what a weird weekend coming up. I mean, have y'all actually looked at the conference championship game schedule? I mean, none of these teams, most of these teams were not in these conferences last year. They're playing in these conference championship games. It's absolutely insane. The Big Ten championship is Oregon versus Penn State. I mean, it's just a weird year, but yeah, I'm ready to see what the playoff committee says tonight and not worry about what everybody else says on social media.
Yeah, Jimmy, I agree with Andrew. I mean, when you see Clemson and SMU in the ACC championship game and Oregon and Penn State and Georgia, even Georgia and Texas, it's almost like the actual bowl games, right? We've seen some of these games in bowl games, right? I feel like we've seen Oregon and Penn State in a Rose Bowl before. So adjusting to the college landscape. Jimmy, let me switch to you a little bit. What do you think in a shortened down version needs to happen? Because I know there's no answer. So I know what do you think needs to happen for Alabama to get in like done deal? Is there anything done deal or is it a done deal?
Nothing will be a done deal tonight unless it goes bad for Alabama. If Alabama is not number 11 tonight, maybe 12, but if Alabama's not number 11 tonight, forget it. It doesn't matter what happens Saturday. If Alabama's behind Miami, if Alabama's behind a South Carolina or Ole Miss, but particularly look to Miami and South Carolina. If Alabama's behind those two, it doesn't matter what happens Saturday because the committee's not going to change their mind as to Alabama versus South Carolina or Alabama versus Miami based on what happens this weekend. So Alabama could definitely be out tonight, but they won't be in for sure tonight, because should Alabama make it into that 11 spot, I do think the outcome of the SMU Clemson game on Saturday could affect that. Clemson, they're certainly going to be outside of the top 12 tonight. If Clemson plays their way in on Saturday, then someone in the top 12 is being bumped out. That could very well be Alabama. So Alabama could be out tonight or maybe in, and that's the suspense for Crimson Tide fans.
Again, we're going to harp on this. I'm going to try to help because I think college football is harder than it's ever been. We've said this a couple of years. Recruiting's changed. I don't think it's a bad thing. I love this season. I'll be honest with you. The 8 overtime game for Georgia, Michigan beating Ohio State. You know what I mean? The one thing Alabama fans, and I know there's been up and down, if you want to harp on Vandy, you can harp on Vandy all you want. If you want to harp on Oklahoma, I understand it. But you know what I know, Andrew? Auburn wasn't playing a flag in Bryant-Denny at midfield, and a lot of rival teams were seeing their opponent planting flags. We saw, 4 fights on Saturday?
Yeah, it's pretty aggressive.
Some good ones.
We saw some good ones in the NFL too, but man, it was. I guess we did see some aggression towards the end of that Iron Bowl.
Yeah, but no flag. There was no flag. That's just natural aggression.
Yeah, fight after the game.
Yes, get in the locker rooms.
Yeah, hey, Alabama did what they needed to do. We talked about it last week. What team was going to show up at Bryant-Denny? Were they going to be sulking after their loss against Oklahoma? I didn't think so. I thought they were going to go in, play with confidence. Final home game for a lot of those guys, and they took care of business. Was it perfect? No. Was it what they needed to do? Get the fan base excited again, and regardless of what happens with the college football playoff, I felt like getting that win against Auburn was very important, especially going into the offseason with all the momentum that this team can have, especially starting tomorrow when Alabama signs a lot of really, really good high school football players, and they're going to sign a class that probably 99% of people throughout the country, including Alabama fans, 8 months ago, 6 months ago, never expected would happen.
Jimmy, again, you look at this season, everything that's happened overall. What are your thoughts? We never really talk. I love college football. I love where it is. I'm not, I understand that times change. I understand the NIL change. I'll tell you the thing I felt the most upset about probably is the constant narrative when things go wrong that these kids don't care. I don't believe they don't care. I think sometimes you get beat. That's what I think. I think sometimes you get beat, you lose a game, but I don't think it's a lack of caring. A decent percentage of this Alabama fan base was like, Alabama's got nothing to play for, they'll lay an egg. I didn't see a lack of emotions for that damn Iron Bowl, and I'm talking from a lot of people, including the coaching staff and including the sideline.
No, that's right. Pro athletes get paid a ton of money, and I think they care. I watch them care all the time when they play their games. They're professionals. They're also, you don't make it to this level of sport without being a competitor. These guys want to win when they play ping pong against each other. They're natural competitors, or they wouldn't be where they're at in life. So no, I never think that it's lack of competition. I think sometimes sports, sometimes the other guy beats you. That's what happens. It's not because you didn't try. The other guy beats you. I love college football right now. I realize it's crazy. I realize it's chaotic. I realize we don't know who's going to win what game. But if you're only a fan of Alabama dominating and winning each week by 7 touchdowns and Godzilla stomping their way through a college football season, and that's what you want to see, and that's all you care about, then you probably just need to take up fishing from here on out, because I don't think college football is going to be like that for anyone. I think that the portal and NIL is creating some level of parity, not NFL parity, but a greater parity than we've ever seen before in college football. And I think it's going to be harder to dominate, harder to win all your games. That's true for everyone that plays college football. And it makes it more enjoyable if you're a fan of college football that wants to sit there and watch games all day long, because you're not sure what's going to happen or who's going to win. And I think Georgia Tech is a great example of that Georgia Tech has enough pieces to be competitive with Georgia when Georgia doesn't have their A game. That's fun for me.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, you're not really looking at many dynasties across the world in any sport, right? I mean, you go drop down to F1, Max Verstappen, he was dominant for 1 year. He's still a great driver and all. He still wins, but this year he's had a lot more losses than he's used to. That was as close to a recent dynasty as I've seen. But I think if you're an Alabama fan and you only look at Alabama, and this isn't just Alabama. This is any college fan that only looks at his team. You think only your team loses. Your team struggles. Your team loses commitments. I mean, we had posts on the round table saying Alabama's the only top team to lose commitments. A day after Ohio State lost 2 commitments. They were the number one. It was the day after. All you got to do is follow Hayes Fawcett or whatever news source you want to see this stuff, Andrew Bone. But this is happening across sports, right?
Yeah, or just follow our board on BOL. There's definitely somebody that's going to post every little
That's
bit
true.
of news,
That's true.
regardless if it has anything to do with Alabama. But yeah, hey, listen, we're in the NIL world, we're in the transfer portal world. People are looking to get paid. People are looking to play. They're looking at these rosters, so it's not like everybody's going to one school over the other anymore. A lot of these schools are still recruiting really well. Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. I mean, LSU still. LSU may have lost Bryce Underwood, but they still have a top 6 recruiting class right now. Who knows where it might fall? But
And they just lost another 5-star while we're doing this show. Cade Phillips flipped to Texas.
Okay. Well,
that's why we're doing the show. I just got a text.
LSU might not have a top 6 class anymore, but
still a good class, though. Still a good class.
So I think you got. What I always tell people: be happy with what you got. You got to hold on to those guys until the end. Alabama, especially. When you have a top class, when you have a top 3, top 5 recruiting class, that means there's a lot of really good players in those classes, and those players are still going to get recruited all
Absolutely.
the way until the finish line. So while you're out there trying to flip guys, trying to sign guys, you got to also really work to keep your guys happy. And I think Alabama has done as good of a job as anybody.
Let me tell you how thin the line is between 1 and 5. So Alabama had the decommitments. Dawson Merritt, Caleb Cunningham tumbled from like 2 to 5. Got Ivan Taylor back, one player, and went back to number 2. Then somebody updated their rankings, and we looked up, and Alabama was number 1. And then yesterday, Bama went from 2 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. That's how thin of a line you're talking with that top talent. Now, you want to be in that top talent, Jimmy Stein.
Yeah.
Recruiting does matter. Rankings do matter. It's perception. It is talent. It is everything. Jimmy, thoughts on that? Also, thoughts on your excitement level on National Signing Day? Because people keep saying like they're not excited, but I am. I love it. And I'm old, been doing this a while.
Yeah, it's two pole. It's always the extremists that are wrong. The middle road is always the right. Those that think stars don't matter, recruiting doesn't matter, recruiting rankings don't matter, stars don't matter. If that was true, then some years Wake Forest would sign better recruiting class than Texas. And that's never happened. And it never will happen because it's not a complete grab bag and that it doesn't matter. The stars matter, the rankings matter. Now, those that also look at it like it's some undeniable science and a player that's projected to be a 5-star means scientifically that he will be a freshman starter and a 3-and-done NFL player. They're doing it wrong too. That's way wrong. That's not correct. Recruiting evaluation is no different than the NFL draft. It is a projection. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. A lot of smart people look at it closely, and they're right a lot, but they'll never be right every time. It's impossible based on what you're trying to do. Predict future human performance playing what amounts to a different sport, because college football is dramatically different than high school football. So I'm just saying those that just live and die the rankings, you're probably putting too much into that. Now, those that ignore it, you're way wrong too. So there's a middle road out there, and I think we covered that really well at BOL.
Andrew, you're a lot older than I am. Are you still excited?
That was funny.
Are you still excited for National Signing Day? I mean, we've been doing this a long time, both of us. For second time on the same fence, first time with all 3 of us. I mean, I've known Jimmy forever. I've known of you for a while. Are you still excited for tomorrow? I mean, we're still covering it. We're still talking. We're still buzzing. Feels a little bit like we're doing something important.
I mean, things have changed a lot through the years. We don't see the huge wave of announcements on National Signing Day anymore. Well, they don't always happen. We used to always have the February signing period and then all the official visits in January, and then that got pushed back, and then the early signing period emerged, and then it got moved up a few weeks. So, I think with all the official visits that take place during the summer, and then kind of the wave that you have to ride throughout the entire season, as far as watching to see which of your commitments are going to, show up on someone else's campus. I'm glad that's over. You're here at the finish line. You kind of wait to see what's going to happen. Are they going to be able to add a couple more? But I think I'm excited just because, hey, it's pretty much over come tomorrow, and you kind of reset and start focusing on, the transfer portal, not the next class. You start focusing more on the transfer portal. Okay, who all did they sign? Who all is Alabama potentially going to lose? And then you got to go after and see over these next 30 days who's going to be available in the portal, who's going to come in for visits, because there's going to be a lot of kids that are going to show up for official visits over the course of the next month from the portal perspective. And then you get into into next year, and it's junior days and spring evals, and it's just a cycle that never really ends. People think recruiting ends. It never ends. It's constantly going 365 days a year, and we cover it pretty well.
Yeah, I think we do a good job. Jimmy, one thing that does not change is a 3-star overreaction when he commits. And I'm never being an ass. Well, I am an ass sometimes, but I'll ask the guys that have heavy opinions, did you watch him? Like Jace Clarizio was a prime example. I had to go watch his game film. He had no highlights out at the time. And people were like, I don't like this, going down the list. So I was asking, did you watch? Nobody watched him. It's literally because he's a 3-star. I think this class, more than any class, exhumes 3 stars don't matter right out of the gate. Keelan Russell, Jackson Lloyd. I mean, we can go down the list. Lotzier Brooks. You can go down the list of guys. Luke Metz is not a 4-star. So few people have him a 4-star. But this is a guy that when Alabama committed him, there was a lot of criticism saying he can't play in the SEC. And then Dan Lanning and Kirby Smart didn't recruit him. They went all in trying to get Luke Metz. Trying to get Luke Metz.
People that overreact in a negative way to a 3-star, I wish almost everyone that followed recruiting would analogize everything to the NFL draft. I mean, to me, a 3-star is a guy that's like a 4th or 5th or 6th round pick. The NFL is full of 4th, 5th, and 6th round picks that become major stars. I mean, we're not going to do the list starting with Tom Brady, but it's a list that would take up 48 shows in a row. There are players that aren't valued at the highest level, whether you're talking about a 1st round pick in the draft or a 5-star prospect, that don't pan out. And sometimes guys blossom late. Some guys just become great players later in life. Happens all the time. And there's so many examples. Look, if Alabama lands a 3-star guy, that means Alabama staff wanted him on this team. And at some point, fans, you got to trust the coach and the staff when they make their evaluations. These guys, I thought, proved themselves very early by taking guys early that Tim just named that were 3-stars at the time. Keelan Russell was not the Keelan Russell we know now when he vaulted to the top of Alabama's board. That was an evaluation, and obviously they hit on that one early. But
Mike Carroll was a low 4-star. Michael Carroll was a low 4-star when he first came in for a visit to Alabama, and they extended him an offer. Didn't have a lot, saying I think one site had him as two sites had him as a 3-star until later in the summer. And now he's, across the board, a 5-star on every single site. So
they've earned the benefit of the doubt. The staff, to me, they've already earned the benefit of the doubt on 3 stars. Now let's see, you got to have a couple cycles come through before you really know. But I've been really impressed with the evaluations. It seems like they're a little bit ahead of the recruiting industry, as they should be. They have great resources there. But
I don't.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Jimmy. I don't think a lot of the fans are actually paying attention. I mean, Anthony Rogers, the outrage that Bama might lose him, ended when I said he's got 220 yards rushing this year. They were like, what the hell? And I said, he's got 400 receiving. He's been used in a different role. He's obviously not a 3-down back. I would have thought that if you had a heavy opinion, you would like look into that stuff. And nothing against Anthony Rogers. He's going to be a Swiss Army knife, that kind of guy. He's going to be special teams guy and line up in the slot wherever he ends up, which we think is going to be Ohio State. But Jace Clarizio is a guy they watched this entire year, put up big numbers, went deep into the playoffs, had him on campus. That if you can't trust your coaching staff, because that's exactly what they did with Keelan Russell. They didn't just throw him an offer. They went and watched. They went and watched all these other guys. They met with him. If you can't trust your coaching staff to evaluate, then, I mean, you can't trust them at all with anything, can you, Andrew?
No, I mean, they loved Clarizio when they watched this film, and they wanted to bring him down for an official visit, kind of see him in person, make sure the height and weight's checked out. I mean, he's 5'11", 195 pounds. Rushed for over 1,600 yards during his senior season. And, I feel like, the staff has done a really good job. They've got a very deep room of analysts and guys that are constantly watching film and comparing and contrasting so many different players throughout the entire country at every single position. And, you also, it's not just guys that came in from Washington who hadn't seen a lot of recruits in the Southeast or know what it's like. And everybody kept saying they aren't going to be able to recruit the Southeast. They didn't have to necessarily recruit the Southeast. They were able to recruit coast to coast in this class. And I mean, Alabama's going to sign 6 players from California. When all those players started committing from California, you know what everybody said? They won't be able to hold on to any of those guys because they're all on the West Coast. They're all going to commit early, and they're all going to flip by National Signing Day. Every single one of those damn guys is signing with Alabama tomorrow. As far as we know.
I'm about to say, this guy's out here throwing out jinxes left and right. I'm over. Joseph's in the background. Joseph just left the back studio. Joseph just quit. Joseph just quit BOL. Andrew just threw it out there. Before we let you go, Jimmy Stein, give me basketball thoughts. Exciting weekend. Lot coming up. This run ends tomorrow. The 7-game run with North Carolina filling themselves out. Give us one basketball thought before we get rid of you and bring in Joseph Hastings before he quits.
Yeah, you know what you got. It's the beauty of playing a tough schedule. You know exactly what you got. You know exactly what you have to work on. Maybe some fans out there would have enjoyed it more if Alabama had played nothing but lower-ranked Sun Belt teams and won every game 110-65. You might have enjoyed that, but Alabama would have had absolutely no idea what they were good at, what they were bad at, what they needed to work on. It's been a fantastic barometer, and now Coach Oates knows in practice what the emphasis needs to be going forward.
Yeah, I don't think you set that schedule to go undefeated, right? I think you set that schedule to get busted in the mouth and see where you stand. Jimmy Stein, we will see you soon. Probably going to do a end of the week, Thursday or Friday recruiting show. I know you're itching to get in here and mix it in with us. We'll chop it up and discuss this class once it's finalized. Andrew Bone, we discussed the class. No, I'm saying you didn't do that. I'm just, don't be act like you're on, you're not like us. You know what I mean? Joe's going to come on. And with that, I'm going to bring Joseph Hastings on. Jimmy Stein, we'll see you soon, buddy.
See you, Jimmy.
Hit the handshake, Joe.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm walking into signing day with confidence. That's what I'm doing.
Hey, all right. We're with you. We'll feel
I respect it.
We'll feel the heat. I mean, something happens, so we're blaming you, but right now we're like, okay. All right. Joseph Hastings, we are here the day before signing day. I mean, 12-game season's over, middle of the basketball season. We get this, and it was like, and the funny thing is the timeline is so jacked up. I have a speech tonight, and when I'm giving up in the Sheffield, the West Alabama. Andrew, you should know the map. But I'm giving it because last year was the 20th. They jerked it up to the 4th for signing day. So we got 2 extra weeks not to go through Christmas. But I've talked to people that are like, yeah, we'll worry about the portal, in late December. I'm like, no. It's starting the 9th. Busy time of the year for us, right, Joseph Hastings?
Yeah, it's crazy how the schedule has shifted and everything is happening pretty much all at once. You've got the college football playoff selection show tonight. Which will obviously be big as you guys talked about. Got early signing period tomorrow. It's not just tomorrow either. It's Thursday, Friday. Got announcements from recruits across the nation on those days. And then you got the portal opening up on Monday, December 9th, going until December 28th. So there's just a lot going on right now. And, it's a crazy time. I mean, for anybody who isn't excited about this, I don't know, just gotta question the love for college football there. This is just awesome. This is a great time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Jimmy kind of alluded to this, and Andrew and I have talked about it. If you're just here to win 99-0, that's not competition. You should be savoring the competition, and that includes the wins. I know human nature some people want to focus on the guys we didn't get. I mean, it never fails. You post Alabama just committed Tom Brady right now, and we know he's about to be the greatest quarterback in the history of football. Somebody will say, what does that mean for so-and-so? Or I hate we lost.
He's not an in-state recruit.
Todd Simpson must be transferring. He's not from the state. I know that's natural, but I've loved it. Andrew Bones, speaking of a little signing day drama, we've got an update on Donovan Starr. It's been a roller coaster, popped up Saturday in Tuscaloosa on a visit with his mom, with people close to him. Sunday, Bama was leading. Vanderbilt, Auburn was out. But this morning, Auburn's reached back out. We got a little drama, and Donovan is going to wait a minute before he signs.
Yeah. You kind of look back a little bit, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. Donovan Starr said that his recruitment had pretty much shut down, that he was sticking with Auburn. He had returned to Auburn rather than taking an official visit to Georgia. And then all of a sudden, he shows up in Tuscaloosa this past weekend for the Iron Bowl. And there was a lot of buzz coming out after the weekend that Alabama was, I don't know if I would say trending, but things were moving in the right direction. I guess that's true.
That's literally the definition. You literally.
God damn it. Whatever. So anyway, we always tell people, the thing we always tell people is there's always going to be this coming off your visit, just emotional high. You're going to be, extremely excited. You're going to love the program. We saw that. What was that? 12 years ago was with 13 years ago was Cyrus Kwanjo when he came off his Auburn official visit and announced his commitment to Auburn on National Signing Day. And then 3 days later, signs with Alabama. So things like this can happen. So Donovan Starr has a great visit to Alabama, comes back. It looks like it's Alabama Vanderbilt, as you said, Auburn on the outside. But now all of a sudden he has decided that he's going to wait. Looks like he's going to wait until Friday to announce and sign his letter of intent, or not letter of intent, but financial aid agreements, all this stuff that
whatever they're signed,
whatever they do now. But he's going to do it on Friday. All three schools still heavily involved: Alabama, Vanderbilt, Auburn. Still committed to Auburn, and they're fighting hard to keep him. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens over the course of the next couple of days.
And since Joseph Hastings was still eating gum off the bottom of his desk in 3rd grade when Cyrus Kwanjo, that's a great visual, Joseph. That's a great visual.
I was in middle school at that time, but
whatever. I don't believe you. Cyrus Kwanjo had a brother, Ari, who'd committed to Alabama. Playing at Alabama was a foregone conclusion he was coming here. Also, Cyrus Jones from his school. It was literally a foregone conclusion. I put no effort into that commitment other than the story. I know Andrew did the same. And he gets on TV and he commits to Auburn, which was like, we're waiting for the hat or something. We're waiting for something. The trick's coming. I didn't know. I was kind of stunned. I think everybody was kind of stunned. So I had to take a break, come back, rewound the DVR or whatever it was back then. Maybe it's a VHS. I don't even know. And saw his dad's face and was like, wow, he did surprise everybody. Go to sit down and eat dinner. It's probably 5 or 6 o'clock and get a text and said, this ain't over. We're getting Cyrus. And I'm like, what the hell? Back then when they said they committed Andrew, right, they'd already sent the paperwork in most of the time.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal. And I know Andrew, 2 days later was Saturday, I think. Might have been 3 or 4 days later, actually. Feel like it was a weekend, maybe Friday night, he committed to Alabama.
It was a Saturday because I was at a blackjack table.
So this went, imagine this. Imagine it going from Wednesday when he committed live on ESPN to Saturday at dinner time, because I had friends over sitting at the table, and one happened to be an Auburn fan, so that was a particularly – but by then we kind of knew they were getting him. We just didn't know what was going on. Joseph, anyways, a lot of the damage – or is it Andrew's turn? Andrew, a lot of the – Joe, a lot of the damage in this class, and this is kind of like people are, limping to the finish line and all. Bama Bama did a lot of their damage in June, right? That run from Keelan out to the last two who decommitted, now that I think about it, but from Keelan Russell
We'll say
on
till AK Deer, to August
to
20th.
AK
We'll
Deer.
stretch it
Thank you,
out, yeah.
AK, for AK saved us. Yes.
Yes, yeah.
They
But
did a lot of their damage.
yeah, you're right. You're right. And you mentioned this a lot, early on during the summer, like, it's halftime, got to be able to hold on to their commitments. I think for the most part, Alabama has done a good job of keeping the class together, pulling off some late flips. I know there will be a lot of a focus on, the Caleb Cunninghams, Dawson Merritt, what we reported about Ty Haywood, but, they got Cavante Henry from Mississippi State, Marshall Pritchett from North Carolina, Ivan Taylor from Michigan, Jace Clarizio from Michigan State, in the mix for Donovan Stars committed to Auburn. So, they're doing, and Derek Meadows too, LSU. So, they're doing their best to go after some of these guys committed elsewhere, pull off some of these late flips. But that run during the summer, getting Keelan, who had the domino effect when Keelan committed, the floodgates essentially opened, over the next few weeks. You just saw commitment after commitment. Pretty much, I think every 3 or 4 days, Bama averaged the commitment. So there was a lot of great news during that time, and not necessarily a whole bunch of commitments, in that spurt, like in that fashion as they had in the summer during the fall. But I think Bama did a really good job with some of these late flips and who they're going after.
Andrew, everybody talks about they want the drama and they want the flips. They want news this late in the process. But remember, all news is not good news. You know what I mean? I mean, LSU just lost a 5-star defensive back who's been committed for a while to Texas.
Missouri just lost a 5-star offensive lineman to
committed to Texas A&M. So all the news isn't good. You speak flips, they're trying to flip yours. We've seen that. Andrew, catch us up real quick on Ty Haywood. I mean, we've covered this to the extreme. I don't think it's, I think this is about as amicable as a breakup gets. I mean, this is strictly business decisions on both ends.
Yeah, I think so. So Ty Haywood committed to Alabama back during the summer. Didn't take any visits after his commitment. Didn't take any visits during the fall. All of a sudden, some schools have kind of come in late, throwing some big NIL numbers at him, and he's decided that he's going to wait until the late period to sign. Grew up an Alabama fan, but when other schools start throwing in some NIL figures, it captures your attention, and it's something he's listening to. I don't think Alabama, wanted to really, I think they were comfortable with the NIL package that had been presented to him. Didn't want to go, too far above that, and I think it's pretty much a done deal that he's going to end up going somewhere else, unless he just decided to, hey, you know what, forget that. I'm ready to sign. Want to go ahead and get it over with. Alabama might say, okay, but as of right now, if NIL is a big factor in that decision and he wants to wait, I think Alabama is going to just tell him, hey, you can wait, but you're going to go somewhere else. We're going to, look a little bit heavier in the portal.
Yeah, I think they can do what they want to with that, with that situation. They got guys they like. I mean, Jackson Lloyd, and again, Ty Haywood's a good prospect, but we always knew he was developmental. He wasn't coming in. The school's actually recruiting him. This is what's kind of odd. The schools recruiting him haven't even really got to know him. I'm curious to see what happens with Michigan there. I mean, I've already seen discussion.
Never visited Michigan.
That's what I'm saying. So this could be a wide open process. And that's probably what he should do, because he spent the vast majority of his time hunkered down on Alabama, right? He was all in, and then things got there at the end. Couldn't even make a visit. And, we do wish him the best of luck. He'll always be a Bammer to some degree. He loved Alabama growing up. So Joseph Hastings, we've got news still coming in. Derek Meadows, very interesting prospect. And to recap, Bama wanted 2 wide receivers. They had Lotzir Brooks early on. Love Lotzir Brooks, the 3-star from New Jersey, who's now moving into the top 100 with other people. Had a great year, broke all the records. They wanted 1 more wide receiver. Ended up getting Caleb Cunningham to commit. Caleb committed first, so Derek Meadows ended up at LSU. Bama was one of the finalists. But now Meadows is time to take a turn and look at Alabama again with some renewed communication.
Absolutely. And, with Derek Meadows, everybody sees the 6'6", 200+ pound frame. There's a lot of potential, a lot of upside there. But there's questions about the production, even though you look at his numbers, he had about 23 catches, averaged 24 yards per reception playing for Bishop Gorman. They go up against some top teams in the country. They're a national program. Had a big game in the state championship, 3 receptions for 102 yards and a touchdown. So, there's definitely a lot of encouraging signs there in terms of his potential, his upside. And you pair him with somebody like Latsier Brooks, who's completely different in terms of what he can do on the field. I think it's an interesting combination. And coming off the class that they signed last year, Rico Scott, Amari Jefferson, Ryan Williams, adding Jeremy Bernard through the transfer portal, it wasn't necessarily a goal for Alabama to sign a big wide receiver class. It was, small in number, but high quality. And, they've responded well following the Caleb Cunningham decommitment and flip to Ole Miss by staying in the mix with Derek Meadows. Obviously Michigan made a huge push with the NIL. LSU is still trying to hold on to them. Notre Dame got him on campus, but they're fading. But Alabama's always kept that relationship going strong. They offered him in late January, got him on campus a couple of times for a spring visit and an official in the summer. And that relationship with Jamarcus Shepard's always been there.
Yeah, and the wide receiver position, it's going to the cupboard will be plentiful with wide receivers in the portal. I think we're going to see some from the Alabama team as well. There are going to be a ton of wide receivers in that portal. We're already seeing
somebody just said, wait, what'd you say, Tim? Wait.
I'm saying the portal will have a lot of wide receivers. Absolutely. Some of them will be Alabama wide receivers, I am projecting. Come down the stretch here, you get to that point. And again, you got to factor in everything with the portal. I mean, one of the things that factors in with the NIL, Andrew, is you don't have to pay $500,000 for a wide receiver in prep ranks when you can get a pretty good one for a guy with 2 seasons under his belt. And hey, let's be real, that's a 1 year. This is a 1 year contract, basically, even stepping foot on campus.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I think that's why a lot of schools aren't too concerned about having to pay somebody X number of dollars late in the process, because if they have a good class and they have good players returning on their team next year, they can go and look in the portal a little bit heavier and get somebody with some quality. Look at last year. Gino Vandermark was not a guy that was going to come in and be a starter, but he was going to be a utility guy when you needed somebody to jump in there, take over for somebody that was injured or something like that. That's exactly what he was able to come in and do. Now there's going to be certain situations where you are going out there and you are having to spend money on a left tackle or maybe an interior guard to come in and make a big contribution on your team who might be losing an All-American. But I think that the transfer portal definitely helps out a lot of teams, especially Alabama. And I think we're going to see Alabama hasn't been as aggressive. They were last year because they had to be because of all the people that left. We're going to see them a lot more aggressive in this year's cycle in the transfer portal than I think we've ever seen them before.
Well, last year they were just the poached. They couldn't really be the poacher. The staff showed up after the first portal window. Second portal window was just their window was open. You know what I mean? It was air going out instead of any air coming in that situation. This year they have a fighting chance to do both. Joseph, give us your final thought heading here as we close out. And again, you guys can find us at BamaOnLine on the round table. There's a lot of we're dropping notes while we're on the show. News is breaking all over. We will have a YouTube show later in the week to recap the class once the class is done. Maybe touch a little bit on the late period, maybe some portal news if some stuff's breaking out. I do find it interesting. We have a lot of schools going, hey, I'm going in the portal and I've heard from. Does anybody realize you're not in the portal? You're probably, loose lips sink ships. You might want to tighten that up. But Joseph, give us a final thought.
Yeah, so obviously, everyone's focus is on 2025. We got early signing period coming up, on Wednesday. The transfer portal, all of that. I think it's just really impressive what Bama's done for laying the foundation for the 2026 and even the 2027 classes. Obviously this was a tough year with the turnaround and the multiple portal windows and the staff changes, everything. But I think what was really important for Bama was to get things going for the 2026, 2027 classes. And, they've made some inroads with in-state guys, guys on the West Coast, obviously. I think they've done a pretty good job with setting a strong foundation going forward. And that was especially true during the spring and summer. That spring, we talked about it a lot. Multiple days or multiple weeks where 100 plus visitors were on campus. A lot of those were sophomores and juniors. And, and even some freshmen too. And Bama was able to make a strong impression then, and it's building up toward what could be some pretty good classes coming forward. So, Bama's fighting for that top spot now, trying to hold on to it. But I think what's really encouraging is the future here and what Bama's set the foundation for.
That's a good point. Bama's fighting. That had 2 DMs yesterday that said, I can't believe Bama's going to finish a class like this. And I was like, they're number 1. I think we're being dramatic. Even if they were number 3, if Bama was number 4, that's dramatic. But Andrew, number 1, not saying they'll finish there, but obviously, like Joe said, battling.
Mm-hmm. The fact that they're number 1 the day before the early signing period is wild. And I don't think they're going to finish number 1, but I do think they're going to finish in that top 3, and that's as good as anybody could have ever expected. Nobody expected it. And I think you look at this class overall. The offensive side of the ball, even with the losses with Haywood and Caleb Cunningham, it's still one of the best freaking offensive classes they've signed in the last 10 years. Defense side of the ball, they did really well. They got their linebackers wrapped up early. They got a great secondary, 3 top 100 secondary players after the secondary class they signed last year. They got the number 2 punter in the country coming in. I thought that was a great win and a good pickup. And then you got some JUCO guys on the defensive front. So, overall, I think it's a great class, and just being able to hold on to a lot of these guys down the home stretch when, Mike Carroll went out to Colorado, and he's had a lot of different people pulling him. Keelan Russell, when his stock kind of exploded, I think a lot of people thought, the Texas schools were going to come after him. LSU was going to go after him when they lost Bryce Underwood. But, a lot of that stuff, Alabama was able to battle against and hold off. And I think the way that they've been able to really piece together this recruiting class in 25 in 10 months, you got to think there's not a single player in this class that was committed to Alabama before this staff arrived. So this is their entire, this is the entire new staff's recruiting class. I think they're excited about it, and definitely gives you a lot of hope for the future.
Remember that freak out in January when all the decommitments, so to speak, happened. I mean, those weren't guys that Alabama ended up pursuing, but all the decommitments happened, and the class went down to 2, and there was a lot of freaking out going on in February. After that happened, and what they did to rebuild this class, especially in the spring and those summer runs, just highly impressive.
There's a freak out every February. Nick Saban used to commit guys, and they'd decommit in February and March or April. It'd be the same thing. But I do find it funny. There was a lot of Bama's 31st, Husky Harsin. There was a lot of that shit I haven't heard in a while, right? I haven't heard that Husky Harsin. Now, I did see Harsin on Twitter throwing up some shade with a little link on his dude was born to tweet. I don't know if he's got somebody helping him or not, but dude was born to troll on the Twitter. But I will say the one thing that's been answered, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th ranked class, whatever it is, we know the staff can recruit. This class is going to have playmakers all over when all is said and done. We love the rankings. I think it'd be good if Alabama had the number 1 class, but I'm under no illusion, I know y'all aren't either, that number 3 is a great class. Number 7 is going to be a great class. But that top 3 or 4 teams divided by a slither, and Alabama put together a complete group. We appreciate y'all being here. We'll see you later in the week with the Recruiting Roundup show once this thing is over, locked and loaded. Andrew, when it's over, we will celebrate, right, Joseph? Not in the middle of the 3rd quarter. Well, I guess this is the 4th quarter. Anyways, Andrew Bone, tell your people goodbye.
Goodbye, people. Come check us out at BamaOnLine.com. We got a lot of buzz, intel, news, nuggets, features, all going on right now on Bama Online, and it's $1 for 7 days. So go check out that deal if you haven't already. I think it's
just Alabama fans. We don't want the rest. We don't want the rest of you fans. Just Alabama.
I want everybody's money. Come on.
Joseph Hastings, tell your people goodbye.
Yeah, you've got Bone throwing the ball up with 3 minutes left in the 4th quarter. Do it up in the stand. But yes, thank you all for tuning in. Gonna have plenty of coverage for an early signing period. Look ahead to 2026. Everything in between. Grading the class, everything like that. So stay tuned. Also, the portal covering that. So going to be a great time to be on BamaOnline.com. And like Bone said, join for $1. $1. That's the perfect time to join right now. You'll get a little bit of the early signing period. You get all the early signing period coverage, plus a little bit of the transfer portal coverage too.
And if you get too down on yourself, just remember this. 5 Iron Bowl wins in a row, baby. Kobe, thank you. Appreciate you guys and gals for being here. We'll see you soon.